This Democratic governor has called for mass protests and disruptions and is calling out what he says are do-nothing Democrats. Laying ground for a potential 2028 presidential bid, Illinois Governor JB Pritzker gave a fiery speech in New Hampshire, and this was his message to the Republicans.
Never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption, but I am now. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace. Folks, the reckoning is here.
Pritzker joined MSNBC's Inside with Jen Psaki Monday night and said this about his fellow Democrats.
We as Democrats to recognize this is the moment where we need to convey to people what we really stand for. Didn't do a great job of it, frankly, in the last election, and that's why we didn't win as Democrats. It's time to speak out, and then, very importantly, we have to deliver.
Many on the right bashed Governor Pritzker. Liz Wheeler, host of the Liz Wheeler Show, wrote on X, "I warned before the election the left is planning the BLM riots 2.0. It's coming." And Benny Johnson wrote on X, "Insane. JB Pritzker is still on live television citing violence against Trump supporters, except now he's comparing the U.S. to Nazi Germany."
Oh, you know how much I love a Benny Johnson tweet.
Well, look, I
this
don't...
ludicrousness about inciting violence.
Yes, I don't think he's inciting violence, although I always note when we discuss this that I think every even remotely spicy thing a right-wing political figure or media figure says about fighting the left or fighting the Democrats gets characterized as a call to political violence by mainstream media folks. So I think this similarly is just rhetoric. I mean, I didn't think the line, they should not know a moment of peace. I think that's, I don't think that's a call for violence. It's just kind of an unkind remark, but we should all know moments of peace, but I mean, I don't know.
He's someone who is making the argument forcibly and forcefully that the current administration is way off track and is, I think, is an administration and a president that is traducing the American Constitution and laws and norms. But to say that, he's saying that there should be mobilization and protest, it's basically a version of no justice, no peace. But that is not, to suggest that that is a call to violence. It's a call to mass mobilization and protest, which is completely different.
But why is Jen Psaki so excited about this? Why is anyone so excited about this? How is this different from anything? Democrats are getting like participation trophies for just saying we should resist Trump, we should protest, we should do things. What are you going to do? And he said we didn't do a good job of communicating the message. I don't agree with that. I think they didn't do a good job of communicating the message, and also there is no message. Like, what do they stand for that people want? I don't think the Democratic Party has figured out what it stands for. Is it? I've been happy to see Democrats be so frustrated with what Trump's doing on the economy and be wanting more free trade and more the end of tariffs. But is that actually what the popular left people in the Democratic Party who are actually getting all the attention, Bernie Sanders and AOC, I thought they don't like free trade and they do like tariffs. So I think the economic policy of the Democratic Party has not worked out at all, except in a just whatever Trump does, we want to do the opposite for the moment. And then it's not clear that the left people are even going to win this scuffle. Like right now, there is no face of the more establishment Democratic movement, but as soon as that face becomes either Josh Shapiro or maybe Gavin Newsom or something, then maybe the Bernie AOC people will just be banished to the sidelines again. I have no idea. Or they could win and take over the party, and then I don't think their message will actually resonate with people. But it's a call to do what? I don't get why they're being. This is same goes for Cory Booker, who is getting like, oh my God, we're so glad at what he did. But what did he do? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with what he did. It just, I don't see the novel character of it.
So I think why people are excited about Pritzker is that while there are all the debates that you just outlined going on, here's this guy who is being very rhetorically fiery about resistance to the Trump agenda. And resistance to the Trump agenda is, in fact, the glue that binds the Democratic Party together right now. Yes, there are all of these other debates, but a lot of those debates are things that are, by their nature, difficult. So, for example, the issue about more identitarian politics and trans rights and all of that. It's like, I see the argument, and I largely agree with the argument, that the most progressive wing on things like trans rights has caused electoral problems for the Democratic Party. I also see the counter-argument that if the Democratic Party isn't there to stand up for marginalised people, what's its purpose? So that is why those kind of fissures are very painful for Democrats. And there's an understandable desire to come together in that kind of opposition to Trump that Pritzker is enunciating. Now, I do think that it is pretty clear what AOC and Bernie Sanders stand for, which is that more economically populist, fighting the oligarchy approach. And they've obviously drawn very big crowds in doing that.
And they say that every billionaire, the existence of a billionaire, is a policy failure.
Right.
JB Pritzker is himself
a
a billionaire.
And then
right? Didn't they go back to back at the convention? Bernie railing against billionaires, and then the next person on stage was JB Pritzker.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Someone in the comments. I'm pretty sure that's how it went down.
No, I mean I think that was close, and I think that Pritzker's wealth is a problem for him if he is indeed serious about running in 2028, and I think he probably is. It is obviously difficult to persuade skeptical voters that a billionaire is on the side of working people. Now, Trump has managed it falsely, I would argue, but he has clearly plugged into that idea. I think that it is a problem in the Democratic Party because of that skepticism of extreme wealth and how extreme wealth is acquired and who gets, as it were, not exactly manipulated, but taken advantage of in the process of that accumulation of wealth.
We have started to see some level of protesting against Trump and against Elon Musk. I would say it still seems to be mostly from very hardcore Democrats, very partisan Democrats. I don't know if we're seeing really mass opposition. I'm not discounting that we could get there. I think if we saw protesting that moves into like rioting, that would actually be to Trump's advantage. But
well, it probably would. But let's not leap ahead of where we are. I mean, there are protests now in quite a few red states. And to get back to the AOC Sanders thing, they have drawn very big crowds in very, very conservative states. I can't remember whether it was Idaho or Utah where they had a huge rally, and AOC was talking about the fact that this is talked about as Trump country, but it's our country. So that message is resonating with people. And I also think, related to that, Robby, there are so many people in this country who are very dissatisfied with just the way things are, that it is a very fertile atmosphere for people like Trump on one hand and people like AOC on the other, because they are, for all their vast differences, disruptive figures who channel that anger at the establishment or Washington or the way things have always run.
People hate the establishment of both parties to a large degree. Trump's great political success is always being able to rail against the establishment in his party despite being the unquestioned leader of the party. He has more power over the party than ever before. The party has no power over him. He is the party, but he still portrays himself quite successfully among Republicans as being antagonistic toward, or if I'm not here, we'll go right back to rule by Mitch McConnell and the neocons, which there might actually be some truth to. Or now if he is replaced by J.D. Vance, I think that's unlikely. But once Trump is off the scene, if there could be an ideological battle where a different faction of Republicans assume control again.
There could theoretically, but do you not think that the Trump MAGA forces have kind of vanquished what used to be called the Republican establishment? I mean, those people...
Unfortunately, no.
You don't really?
I wish they had.
You think they could, those McConnellite type people could come back?
I think they're still in power. I think behind the scenes, it's still a lot of them. I mean, what's happening in the Pentagon, to me, is a clear indication of that. This is an area of policy where I am at my most positively disposed toward Trump, is the America First foreign policy agenda of not getting involved in costly wars all over the globe. And what I see happening is a behind-the-scenes... Mike Walls, who is the political figure responsible for Jeffrey Goldberg being in a Signal chat, is not of the America First foreign policy. He's a Cheneyite, and he might survive in that role longer than Hegseth does. So that's these people have proven very difficult to get out of key roles in government, and I think that's to the detriment of implementing the aspects of Trump's policy I most want to see implemented. And I do now. I worry if Trump's gone, they will just resume power. Although, again, J.D. Vance on this particular issue, I think might actually be even better than Trump at countering their influence. We saw actually from that chat that he was interested in pushing back on what everybody else wanted to do in terms of the foreign policy. So I think that fight will continue to be fought, and maybe they'll be kept at bay. But like some dark, mystical, Sauron-like Lord of the Rings force, never permanently vanquished, always lurking in the shadows.
You know, so obviously we have differing views on the war in Ukraine in particular, and I would be much more supportive of aid to Ukraine, and I think the America First thing essentially enables Russia to succeed in invading another sovereign nation. But I do think that there is this broader divide that you've outlined in the Republican Party. It just seems to me that the Trump forces have almost entirely overrun those people, and figures like Walz are a kind of outlier who has now aligned himself much more, at least publicly.
What if they're just biding their time?
Maybe. Up next, the New York Times is getting backlash for praising a controversial Twitch streamer. Stay tuned for that.